But that will show us, okay, if birth control helped, if Accutane helped, or if antibiotics helped, if spironolactone helped or didn't, then we have some basis of what's happening.
And then I realized, oh wait, there are 3 other doors over there about what's going on with my gut, what's going on with the birth control that I'm putting into my body, what's actually happening inside my body because of these different things. So to me, it's very fascinating that I got to learn it from you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of She's in Sync. Today, I have a client of mine who's joining me, Melissa. And Melissa has a story that I'm really excited to share because she is someone who came to me and she had been struggling with acne for a really long time, I'll let her tell her own story, but in summary, had been recommended birth control at a really young age for her acne and was on Accutane and really went through all of the things that I hear over and over again from women who are reaching out to me, clients who are struggling with similar things, or women who are just curious about, is this approach going to work for me? Because I've tried so many things to heal my acne. And she was also looking to get off birth control and had a history of painful periods. So there were a lot of things that we worked on together. And I wanted to have her on the show, not only because of her story, but because she has been such an amazing client to work with, in the fact that you really took, the bull by the horns, for lack of a better way of saying it. And you were very open to changing things and shifting things. And you just saw great results because you put in the work. And it did come with some fears of, making the investment to do something different and try something new. And there's a financial investment with it. So I'm so glad that you came on the show, and other women can learn from you and your story and hopefully inspire other women who are struggling with the same things that you were several months ago. So Melissa, welcome to She's in Sync.
Yay! Thank you. This is so exciting. I've never done something like this before. It's so fun.
Yes, I love having past clients and current clients on the show. So I'm so glad that you're here. Tell us, I know I did like a brief intro, but tell us a little bit about your story with acne, with birth control. Tell us it all.
Yeah. So I'm going to start from a young age. When I was around 14, I was diagnosed with Lyme disease and it wasn't caught in time. So I had a lot of residual side effects from it, a lot of chronic achiness, chronic inflammation. So at a young age, I was already experiencing lots of inflammation in my joints and just in my whole body in general. And then I started to experience acne. I'm not sure if it was hormonal or like what was happening at the time, but I was about 15 years old. So I went on Accutane. And then, of course, to go on Accutane, you have to be on birth control. So they put me on birth control as well. I don't remember getting any kind of information about either product. I just know that I researched about Accutane because I was kind of going through it and I was like, oh, look at this. This will heal my acne. Great, let's do it. So I went on Accutane at a very young age and started with birth control at a very young age. And once I came off of birth control, came off of Accutane, I wasn't told to come off of birth control. So I stayed on birth control up until this year, or the end of last year, beginning of last year, end of last year, sometime last year.
Yeah, it's early January 2026 while we're recording this. So.
So I stayed on birth control for a while. Fast forward to August 2024, I started to see a lot of people online, specifically like TikTok and Instagram, saying, oh, I came off of birth control because of these side effects. And I was like, oh, side effects of birth control. I would like to know a little bit more about that because I've never been educated about it. So then I started to read people saying, that birth control can cause this and levels of high copper, and it can give you, just reading and consuming so much. So then I did quote unquote research on my own, and I was like, oh, I would love to come off of birth control, have a natural cycle, experience ovulation for the very first time, have a natural period. So that's what I did. And the way to do it, as I read, was to prep your body for it for about 3 months before you come off. And I was like, I can do that. I started eating really healthy, basically in an inflammatory diet. I stopped eating sugars and cake on birthday and, all of the fun things. And I did a bunch of different exercises, lots of running, lots of weightlifting, getting my hormones ready. And then I switched up my face care routine. And somewhere along the way, I developed a lot more acne than what I had. And it pushed me to the point of, this is mentally and emotionally too much. What do I do? And I was like, should I just do Accutane? Let's just do Accutane because I've done it before. It's fast, it's simple. I just take a pill and I move on. So I went on Accutane for maybe a month until I was able to officially connect with Taylor. When we connected, we did labs and mineral testing and the GI testing right away. And then I came off of birth control, which was really exciting. And I started working with her because I loved the idea of, it's, the natural way, work with a dietitian, everything that I was already researching about, it kind of came back full circle. And I was like, this is someone that I can trust because of her background and, all the work that she's already done, because I saw her on Instagram and I was thinking, this is exactly what I wanted. I wish I didn't jump right to Accutane. So we started together, we did all the labs, all the testing, and then we started the program, and it went very smoothly, which I was surprised by.
Okay. So I want to ask about that, but first I want to go back to, you had done a lot of research and
Mm.
so it sounds like your research was like social media. Was it reading any books? Like what kind of things were you doing? And, part two of that question is,
Mhm.
what made you decide that that maybe wasn't enough and that you needed to work with a professional on it? Because I think this is something that I hear this a lot of like, well, can't I just read this book? Or, this, a lot of times it's like, well, why am I going to invest in this? I don't have the time or the money, or, there's some sort of barrier to that. They're like, I'll just come off and see what happens. And so then a lot of women experience the negative side effects of stopping cold turkey because they don't get that professional support. So I'm curious, what kind of research were you doing and what made you decide that it was worth investing in getting support with somebody for that transition off birth control and to heal your acne?
So initially, I saw people on Instagram and TikTok talking about it. And they have, when you do the social media, you have hashtags. So I clicked on dietitian, or I clicked on, naturopathic doctor. And I was like, oh, these people do it through testing. So I knew that there was some kind of testing involved to figure out what was happening inside the body. And there's another creator on Instagram, like you, a dietitian, who I follow, and I was following her while I was following you, and I saw both of you doing all of these tests. So that was the base of the research that I did. I was just consuming a lot to understand what the actual process was and then I realized you can do mineral testing, you do GI, you do, blood tests for all these other panels. So I was basically gathering information of what it was before I decided, okay, I need to do this. And I felt like I needed to do it because I I have no other reason besides I just wanted to be me and not me on birth control, because I was also learning the side effects of birth control. In my life, I've experienced like depression and anxiety and all of those things. And from other people's story, I realized, I wonder if that's a factor. I wonder if there's more imbalances other than just I'm anxious or I'm depressed that's enhancing those. So that's why I want to do work with you, because I wanted to kind of do it the natural way. Like, what's actually happening in my body and how can I take control over that?
Yeah. So you really wanted the personalization of it, where it's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
it's not just okay, well, eat more of these foods or avoid these things, take these supplements, these might work. It's very much of like getting the data of what what is your mineral status, what is suboptimal in your body, what does your body need more support with, and that's where the functional labs come in, and that's where the personalized support comes in. So that's, I think, really important for people who are listening to kind of consider which route you want to go, because there is a lot of really good information out there. And, I think the customization is what really sets it apart working with a provider like myself or someone else in the same area, because it's just so much faster and smoother, which is what we'll get to next is I'm curious. You said that you were like, it was pretty smooth. I didn't expect that. What were your fears maybe of what might happen or going into this program?
I was nervous that one, I was skeptical because you see a lot of people, like yourself, promoting their business because they need clients and they want to actually help these clients. So I was kind of skeptical. I was like, it's working for all these people, but I've had severe acne my whole life. Is it actually going to work for me? I think that's kind of where like my fear came in. I was like, that's why when we did it, I was like, oh, this is so smooth because I'm not experiencing what I thought I was going to experience.
Mm-hmm. So it was the fear of what if this doesn't work?
Yes, it was the fear of what if this doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And of course, everyone has a fear of the unknown. Obviously, I've never done this before. And I was putting like everything, all of my trust into you. And so I was feeling nervous about what if this doesn't work for me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's so important because that is such a real fear, especially for those of us who have struggled with acne for most of our life. We've been around the block with these things and done all the conventional and natural acne solutions. So again, what sets this program apart is you're getting labs that are not run by dermatologists, that are not run by even a lot of functional practitioners. It's specifically geared towards acne, birth control, hormones, get all of the interconnecting things. And that's why clients like you see such better results because we're getting to the root of the problem versus more of like just the surface level stuff, or we're just looking at the gut, or we're just looking at minerals. It's like we're looking at all the interconnections in the body from the lens of what's optimal for clear skin when you're transitioning off of birth control, especially because that's a whole nother layer, especially if you've been on it for 10 plus years, like you had and most of my clients have been. So in terms of what we found through the functional labs, so I'll take this part from here in terms of like clinically what we found, because we discovered a lot. So Melissa was in my VIP one-on-one coaching program, which is my highest support option, which has all the functional labs. This is really for the woman who has, you know, been around the block, exactly what we said, and tried a lot of things up until this point and really wants that clear direction with the guided lab data and the ongoing support. So the more labs we run, the more data we get. So we're going to dive into some of that next. The first big thing that we uncovered was lots of inflammation and a clear stress pattern. And what we saw specifically in your blood labs that I know we started talking about and tackling right away was really, really high copper. And I've talked about this many, many times before on this podcast. I have entire episodes about this. But copper is something that I see very high in a lot of women with a history of birth control use. Because, and we're not talking about the copper IUD, this is hormonal birth control. And this is because copper can rise with estrogen, and estrogen, artificial estrogen, is in some forms of birth control. So they rise together. And if someone's been on birth control and like Melissa had been Accutane, both of those things impact your liver, impact your detoxification. So if you're already, your body is building up this copper, which in excess is toxic, but then it also can't detoxify it because it's overburdened from birth control, from Accutane, from just toxins in general, right? Like we just are exposed to toxins in our everyday life. There's nothing we can do about that. Then we see this buildup over time of high copper, which is creating a chronic inflammatory response. So I like to see copper at around 100. Yours was around like in the 180s. Mm-hmm. So that was extremely high. So right away I was like, we gotta get you on a high free copper protocol, which is a combination of targeted supplements like zinc and glutathione, some binders to help the body naturally detoxify that copper in a way that is not stressful. So we're doing it. I hate to say the word like copper detox, but that's what it is. But it's not eliminating foods or anything like that. It's very much targeted supplements to gently detoxify that copper and also support your detox organs like your liver in the process. So that was one thing we found. We also discovered that you had what's called a calcium shell on your HTMA, which is the hair tissue mineral analysis test that we run. And one cause of this can be copper toxicity, which we just identified. It can be through long or be formed by long-term birth control use. And it can also be from chronic stress, trauma. And when someone has a calcium shell, essentially what that means is your body is forming this protective outer layer on the calcium. The calcium gets stuck in the tissues versus in the blood where it should be. And that in and of itself is a stress response. So those two things already were stressors on your body. And then we got to your gut and we had some food poisoning and a little bit of overgrowth, which we addressed the food poisoning through a targeted probiotic, but we actually didn't have to do any gut killing protocol or anything like that, which I like to point that out with this because sometimes people jump straight to, oh, it's in my gut, I have to kill, kill, kill. But you even had some overgrowth and we didn't even have to really touch your gut, minus getting rid of that food poisoning. So those were some of the big inflammatory slash stressors that we found that contributed not only just to your acne, but also, painful periods, inflammation in your body. So I know one thing you said was you, in one of your check-in forms, you said like you just felt less inflamed, your joints didn't hurt as much, which is also huge with someone with Lyme disease too.
Yeah, I was feeling nervous. I was like, is this placebo? But it wasn't actually.
Yeah, it's a very real thing, and I do see that a lot with high copper. Copper can also, and when someone has a calcium shell and just stress on the body, like all of these things are causing, it can also lead to mental health things. So it can lead to anxiety, depression, insomnia, difficulty concentrating or thinking. So those were all things I know with your history of just having anxiety and, just being aware of that. Like, I was like, this makes a lot of sense. Like, it's not all in your head, which is, I think, sometimes what we're told, especially as women throughout different parts of the month. But it's like your body is literally under stress constantly. The next thing we found were pretty severe nutrient deficiencies. So you're really low in B12. B vitamins are really, really important for energy, for mood. Really low in zinc. Like I put in my notes here, super low in all caps when I was reviewing her labs before, just in preparation for this podcast. And then we also had low iodine, which iodine's really, really important for skin health. It's important for hormones, thyroid, metabolic health, detoxification, really huge for acne in particular. And your vitamin A was okay, but it was interesting. I want to note this too, because we started working together. It was a couple months after you stopped Accutane, right? Because I remember telling you, I was like, let's start a couple months later so that Accutane can get out of your system, so these lab values reflect that adequately. Is that right?
Yeah, so I think I started the Accutane, and then you told me to wait a month before I continued with different supplements and to do my blood test. So this was maybe like a month and a half post.
Yeah, post coming off Accutane. Yeah, because this is significant because Accutane worked for you, right? Like if you went on it, it was like kind of the magic solution. It worked for you. Okay. So this is important because if you're in the same boat where Accutane has worked for you, that's a sign that your body is very low in vitamin A. So I say this because when we tested your vitamin A, you were like in the 50s, and I like to see it 65-ish. So it actually wasn't that low, but that makes sense because you had just gotten off Accutane ish, kind of like about a month and a half. But of course, you're not going to go like super low right away from that. Your body takes time to detoxify that. So if you're someone who has been on Accutane and you're like, I don't want to go back on Accutane, like this is an example of a natural solution is eating more vitamin A rich foods. And when I say vitamin A, I'm talking retinol. So this is mostly from animal sources. So I know you were on cod liver. There are other sources like beef liver. You just want to be careful with that with high copper since that has copper in there. Eggs, dairy products, those types of things are going to be really, really helpful. And most of the time, people with acne need to supplement because our bodies just are chronically lower in vitamin A, also vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, vitamin C, antioxidants. So, all of these things, I always will ask people, I'm like, what worked for you in your journey with acne? What didn't work for you? Because that can give us direction, possibly even before we get labs back, which will give us even further definition and definitive answers. But that will show us, okay, if if birth control helped, if Accutane helped, or if antibiotics helped, if spironolactone helped or didn't, then we have some basis of what's happening. And the last thing I want to touch on is the sluggish detox pathways. So, because your body had so much stress, we had the high copper, we had the calcium shell, which is the long term stress pattern. We had low vitamins and minerals, which are really important for liver health. Our liver enzymes were really sluggish. So, even years on birth control and being on and off Accutane, as well as your low zinc, all of those things contributed to this. So, this was also important for me to look at because with any medication, there's long term side effects of that. And so, knowing that we just needed to provide your body with a little bit of extra detox support, especially while going through that high free copper protocol, was really important. And I think that's something I want to drive home for everybody is that this is a big example of how everything is so interconnected. We don't want to just jump to a copper protocol or something like that. We want to make for sure your detoxification is supported before that. So we have to be very strategic with the order of operations. So for you, we focus first on mineral support, breaking down that calcium shell to get it back into the blood where it should be. And then we began the high free copper protocol, prepping for iodine, and then we layered in iodine. And I made a note to myself, I'm like, we might want to do some gut stuff, but by the time we finished phases 1 through 2, you were doing really, really good. So your skin started responding pretty quickly, and we didn't even need to do any gut specific support.
Yeah, I'm surprised how fast it kind of worked.
So, tell us kind of like your experience with that as you were like hearing the labs and as you were, starting the protocols, like what I just shared my perspective, like very sciencey, but like what were you
Yeah.
hearing? What was surprising or not surprising or what clicked?
I am such a science girly. Like that's my background in my profession. So I really loved doing all of the testing. It was fun for me. Something that was surprising was having a natural period. That was surprising only because you hear stories of people. I came off of birth control and I didn't get my period for 3 months. And for me, I was like, okay, I was like mentally preparing. I'm not going to get my period and I'm working with Taylor and it's all going to be fine. My body reacted differently and I had a period and I learned through you how to test like ovulation and all of those things. So I was really surprised that I had a less painful period off of birth control versus when I was on birth control. Because when I was on birth control, the first 2 days, like I would have cramps. Off birth control, no cramps at all. So I was really surprised with how my body was reacting to all of the different things you were helping me put in it.
And that makes a lot of sense because you were detoxing that copper, which I think for you that was the biggest driver of the those painful periods on the pill.
Yeah, no one even tells you about copper and what it is and how it gets in you. They're just like, here's the birth control because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the in my accelerator and VIP. That's one of the things that I test for if we're doing depending on what track you're doing in the accelerator. But because with painful periods, that's so important. So if someone's coming off of hormonal birth control and they're looking at non-hormonal birth control options, some people are thinking about the copper IUD, and I'm like that. I mean, I have the copper IUD at this point in my life, and it works for me. But if you have high free copper, you do not want that because that is going to make your periods worse, which is why you might hear women they go on that and they have a horrible time with it, and then they're off and they don't know what other methods there are to support unplanned pregnancy, and so then they go back on birth control. So this is just where I'm so passionate about educating women. I know you are too at this point after all you've learned. It's like there are so many more options. We aren't taught these things as women of like other methods to, clear acne or other methods to, preventing pregnancy that aren't hormonal birth control or the copper UD that work with our body versus like against it.
Yeah, I think something surprising too is that you don't realize how many doors there are until you have to go and open them. Like I thought I was doing a great job by exercising and eating healthy. And then I realized, oh wait, there are three other doors over there about what's going on with my gut, what's going on with the birth control that I'm putting into my body, what's actually happening inside my body because of these different things. So to me, it's very fascinating that I got to learn it from you.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a really good point too, is most of the women I work with, like they have really good foundations. Like they're pretty healthy. They educate themselves about health, they're exercising and eating healthy and all that kind of stuff. And that's usually not enough when you have, gut stuff going on. When you have high free copper, it's like your body needs very targeted nutrition and support and protocols that that's where I think that I know that's where the personalization comes in versus if you've just been reading a book or listening to a podcast, eating healthy and exercising unfortunately won't be enough in many cases.
That we should talk more about too during this process is like the mental health side of it too, because I did, still working on it, my life in fight or flight because of, past traumas in my life, my history growing up. And so I've realized through this process, like I'm doing a good job eating, I'm doing a good job with my diet. You helped me with supplements. You helped me realize, what I specifically need to put into my body. But you also helped me realize I was just living my life way too fast, like not taking a second to breathe, not taking a second to sit down and eat and digest properly and all of the things. I was just living my life go, go, go. So you taught me, take 3 breaths before you eat to help with digestion. Here's a link to working on everything mental health wise through this other coach that you can learn from. So a there's a lot that goes in it. It's not just here's your supplement, this is what you need to add into your diet. Like what else are we doing to like actually take care of ourselves as a whole? And that mental health piece is important too.
Yes. Yeah, because you can't out supplement a nervous system that's constantly in fight or flight, or you can't out supplement if someone's not eating enough or, they're just that's why this work is so wrap around and holistic because we are talking about a lot of things like mental health and nervous system and how it all connects with the gut and with the skin and all that kind of stuff. And you did a really good job just being very open-minded to that and recognizing that. And I do remember the chewing your food that because you came to me this a couple months ago and things were pretty well with skin and periods and off birth control for a while. And you're like, I just feel more bloated. And I was like, are you, tell me a little bit more about that. Like, when's that happening and what's going on? And, because at that point we hadn't done gut work, and I was like, oh, maybe we should look into that at this point if you are experiencing that. And I was like, well, let's try this first. And I was like, are you chewing your food? Are you rushing during the work day? Because that's when your symptoms were the worst. And you were, like many of us are, you were mid work and you travel for your job. So you were eating in your car, you were rushing before going into clients' houses, and just a couple tweaks. And again, we didn't have to do anything with your gut. That worked to decrease the bloating.
Yeah. The mind to gut comparison is insane.
Yep. I
It's
know.
amazing how everything like literally interconnects.
Yes. Yes. Were there any challenges along the way? I know we talked about, how smooth the process was and the lab data was really helpful and your body did respond pretty quickly. And I can think of a challenge you experienced, but I'm curious if you have any thoughts.
I think my challenge was, and probably will be for a long time, is not to be too hard on myself. It was always, here's an imperfection. I need to change it. Like very type A. That was challenging. It's challenging to be like, oh no, I have a pimple. I'm backtracking. But that's not the case. Maybe I have a pimple because of sleep or because maybe I did overeat all of the sugar because of holidays, like whatever it may be. I think that was the challenge. But what I learned from that is it's not that I got a pimple and everything is ruined. It's what is my body telling me from that? And that's like, might be a direct quote from you because I've learned that from you. But now, anytime I get a little breakout, I say, what is my body trying to tell me rather than letting my mind run a million miles a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. Because healing it's a journey and there's going to be highs and lows. And you're, I don't know if this is the right word, but you're like kind of always going to be in like remission or it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
evolving. It's like your way of communication. So those of us like, with acne, that's our skin is what communicates with us. For other people, it's GI symptoms like bloating, constipation, diarrhea. For other people, it's period issues, losing their period, painful periods. So everyone has their own way their body communicates with them. And so I've been that in that same situation where it's like you have an acne flare or something and you're like, holy shit, oh no, like I'm going back. Like there's this trauma that comes up with it. Because it is so tied to mental health and just the fear of I see the light, I want it to last. And so when you kind of like get that, you regress a little bit and your brain starts to take over. So yes, very much what is my body communicating with me? And you now know that you have the power to correct that and fix that. And it's not your body working against you, it's your body trying to get your attention. And it's
Yeah.
something you can do about it, which is nice.
What was you said that you thought you knew what I was going to say. What were you
It
going to
goes with
say?
the perfectionism, but I
Yeah.
remember you did get a period right away, but then there was a period where there was like a little, they weren't perfect. It was like,
Right.
they weren't irregular, but they just were a little bit more lengthy than you wanted. And
Hmm.
so there was a lot of, it should be exactly 28 days. Like I got it right away. And so you started to, this was in the beginning of your post birth control journey. So you started getting in your head and getting nervous about that. And I think we
Yes.
had that conversation of like, this is normal, like it's okay, like your body's figuring itself out. And, we talked a lot about how the stress of stressing out about it not being perfect
Hmm.
was most likely contributing to that irregular cycle. And then I think you kind of just like let it go and let it be what it was going to be. And it came back and was regular thereon.
Yeah, the same with my face. Every month I'll still get one pimple in the same exact spot, possibly because of my period. And I just, oh, there it is. Let it go. Oh, my period's 1 day late. Let it go. There's so much more that I've learned rather than, like just what to eat. It's more of just let life be and everything will be fine.
Yeah. Not chasing perfectionism with your health because you're going to be chasing forever.
Right.
That's even I learned that this summer with my own health journey with, being on different skincare products and it not working for my skin even though it worked for other people and I was chasing perfect skin and I will always be someone who, has an acne pimple sometimes and
Mhm.
that's just in my DNA. That's how it is. But it's a lot better. I'd rather have one pimple here and there than like my whole face being broken out all the time and painful. So putting things into perspective of like, what's realistic? What should I expect? And also, what's normal? It's normal to get a breakout every once in a while. It's normal to
Mhm.
have some cramping with your period. It's normal to be bloated sometimes. But if it's constant and it's all the time and it's, really impacting your life, then that's when your body's communicating. So putting things into perspective of like not chasing perfection because that doesn't exist with anything.
Yeah, that perfectionist, that part was my most challenging part.
Yeah, and that was helpful for us to just kind of like talk through at various points in your healing journey and for you to
Oh,
really
yeah.
just, you know, kind of because it is the process. And a lot of times I think you don't know what you don't know. So
Right.
you don't know what's normal, what's not normal. So the fact that I was there to say like, okay, like this is normal. I'm not concerned
Hmm.
about this. Like, let's see what the next couple months bring. I think that was helpful for you versus when you're just going down the Google rabbit hole and you get a bunch of different people saying a bunch of different things or down Reddit and everyone's saying like, no, that's not good. And it that's easy to spiral.
Yeah. It was helpful to hear it, and I still needed to do work within myself to accept it because hearing it from you was, of course, very reassuring. But if I didn't put any action into it, I was still just letting it run through my brain. So there was finally a turning point where I was like, it's going to happen. And the only way out is to just go through it. I'm going to get a breakout every once in a while, and my period's not going to be perfect, but it's better than what it was before. So, just literally just teaching myself how to relax has been very helpful with my nervous system.
Yeah. And I think the more evidence you get, the more times this happens and you see that you're not regressing or you're not reverting back to your past self where you were constantly struggling with consistent breakouts and painful periods and whatever, the more your body the more your brain builds resiliency to that of like, okay, this is fine. This is fine. But when you're new and fresh in it, it's a lot harder before you have that data.
Yeah, I think we started working together last May around that time. And it's only taken me up until like maybe like 3 months ago for myself to be like, oh, it's fine. Here's my pimple period. Everything's okay.
Yeah, and there will still be ups and downs, like that's the thing. It's like life is it's bittersweet this way. It's ever evolving, ever changing, and so there'll be times where your brain gets the best of you, and it's good. You are building again that resiliency to overcome it and to stress less about it, and for less periods of time when that does come up versus I know my past self would be like constantly Googling and
Hmm.
constantly searching for solutions and going on Instagram and looking at programs and stuff like that for my acne. Versus now, if I have like a flare, I'm like, okay, like what is this telling me? You know what I mean? Like I have one right now and I got a chemical peel a few weeks ago and it's from that and probably eating and drinking from the holidays since we're, fresh out of all the holidays that just happened. So
Yeah,
it is what it is.
exactly. I have one right now and I wear my tinted sunscreen and everything's fine. I just move
Yeah.
on.
So before we close this part out, because this is very significant, the fact that you just are saying all of this, but the fact that you just said that of like, I'm just wearing my tinted sunscreen and, it's okay if I have one zit here and there, like it's fine. That's huge because when we first started, I asked my skin clients to take photos monthly for us to track progress. And that was really, really hard for you at first to take those initial photos.
Yeah, when I had my initial flare up, which was the reason that I started working with you, I have I never experienced acne like that even when I was younger and started Accutane and birth control. It was awful. And I know that people can relate because then they don't want to go out and see friends. They don't want to go out and take pictures. They don't want to be perceived as, however their brain is thinking other people's going to perceive them as. So it took me way too long to take progress photos because I was nervous for you to see, even though you've experienced and you're helping me. Like I think for me personally, it was like being embarrassed. Like I don't want this to be true for me. This is too hard for me, and it was awful. So yes, taking those progress pictures was very hard for me. And I
Mm-hmm.
think in my personal journey, I have the post inflammatory marks, but my face is clear. So like with acne, so having to remind myself they're just marks. This is a conversation for an esthetician. Everything's, going to be fine. It's not what it was when I began with you with the active acne. So yes, taking those pictures was incredibly hard.
Yeah. And it's one of those, I don't think, unless you've struggled with acne, you can't understand the gravity of that. So anyone who's listening to this, I'm sure if at this point you're still here, you have struggled with acne and you get it, right? Like it literally takes over your mind, all of your thoughts. It's the first thing you wake up in the morning thinking about. It's constantly on your mind throughout the day. You're thinking through your weekend plans or if you have like a date or if you have to take photos, it's always on your mind and it also hurts, like it's on your face, it's other people see it, it hurts a lot of the time and so it's hard not to think about it. But we are our own worst critics with it because it is very emotionally draining and impactful, not just physically but emotionally. Are you glad you took those photos now?
Yes. Looking at the very first photo that I took compared to now, I'm like, oh wow, I can't believe how far I've come.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll drop the in the show notes. I'll drop the Instagram post I did that highlights Melissa's before and after photos. If you guys want to check that out, so you can actually see what that looks like. Because that's what I told you. I was like, I know it's really hard, and I knew you knew this, but I get it. It's there's just the judgment of like, oh, what is someone else going to think? Like it's just so ingrained. Even though you knew I had struggled with that myself, and that's
Mhm.
exactly what I do. That there was no judgment. It's you have that judgment, and so putting that into someone else, especially someone you didn't know that well at the time, that's like really scary. And so I remember saying, I know it's really hard and you're going to want to see how far you've come one day. And, you have. So now it's a cool thing to look back on. But at the time, especially with what we said earlier of like just that fear of like, what if this is another thing that doesn't work? Or, you don't want to take photos and then like have it be the same 5 months later after investing in this program.
Right. Yeah.
Are there any other things that you think are important that you want listeners to know about in regards to your healing journey, coming off birth control with acne, or about this process? Anything that you think we didn't touch on or think is important?
I think we covered it all. I definitely want to highlight that mental health aspect of it because a dysregulated nervous system, like we talked about, isn't going to do any good. I think there's a lot of inner work that you need to do, a lot of ac- acceptance of this is just who I am, and I'm learning how to change, learning how to trust yourself and to be able to trust others, like specific doctors and everybody like you who's here to help. I think it's hard, something like this, it's hard to trust because there comes a lot of fear of the unknown with it. But I hope whoever is listening is like, you know what, this needs to be the start of my journey too. Because that was me. I was like, I need help. And you were there. And I've said before in your notes, and if you're working with Taylor, you know that you have to fill something out. And at the end of my notes, I always say, like, you literally saved my life. You turned my life around. It's incredible. I didn't even know that this version of myself was possible.
Yeah, Melissa has the best check-in notes. Every time I read them, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I just like my heart literally, like in the Grinch where it grows like 10 times its size or whatever. I'm like, I feel like that's like what my heart does every single time. So
Oh,
thank
I
you for
love
sharing
it.
that about
Absolutely. Yes.
experience. And again, this is not only a testament. I gave you the tools, I gave you the knowledge, and you're the one that implemented these things. And as you highlighted so beautifully as we've been talking, like you really came into this knowing like, okay, this is a me thing and I'm going to do what I need to do to feel better. And you did. And it's such a testament to how much work and effort you put into this journey. And I'm so happy that, and I'm not surprised that you are where you are today because of that.
Thank you. Yeah. It does take a lot of hard work because it's literally your own body. You have to do the work, but it's good to learn from someone like you who is so passionate about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that being said, this is an example of if you want the easy button, then the natural root cause healing might not be the right direction for you. Like it's something that we dive deep. So
Yeah.
it's if you want the easy button, if you just want to, hey, take the supplements, hey, don't eat these foods, like that is not what we do. It's much more multi-dimensional than that, and that is what creates lasting change, I will tell you, because we're getting to the root of all of these imbalances naturally, so you have sustainable progress and just feel better and much more like yourself long term. So to close out, how are you nourishing yourself recently?
So when we first started, you send your clients something along the lines of, why do you want to work with me? What do you want to get out of this program? And I put something like, I would like to eat a cupcake. I would like to eat sugar. I would like to eat, all of the foods that I thought were trigger foods without wondering, what is my face going to look like the next day? So the way I'm nourishing myself is, yesterday I had a piece of cake for someone's birthday party at work, and I was totally fine. Regulated nervous system, woke up, face was the same, and I know it's because I'm the root of my acne is not, I'm going to eat a cupcake and I'm going to have acne the next day. The root of my cause was much more complex, and I know that I'm already nourishing myself through food and diet and lifestyle and supplements, and allowing myself to be happy and participate in those celebrations is how I'm nourishing myself today.
Yeah, because there was a lot of fear. That's another thing you gained from working together is just that peace of mind that it's not the food, it's not gluten, it's not dairy, it's not sugar. And most of the time I will say that it's usually not about the food, it's what environment is the food landing in when it enters your body. So if you're already inflamed, of course, certain foods might exacerbate that. And it's usually not a root cause. So I'm glad we highlighted that at the end of so many of my clients. It's like they are eliminating so many foods. And when you can have that food freedom back and not worry about that and be able to enjoy food and not worrying about it, causing breakout the next morning, it's beyond words how that feels.
Oh yeah, incredibly life changing. And I feel free, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you again for being on the podcast, sharing your journey, and just being so open about what this has looked like for you. And if you're listening to this and resonate, first of all, feel free to reach out to me and we can have a conversation about what this journey could look like for you, or shoot it to a friend or another woman in your life who maybe is going through the same thing, to give her some support and some resources on her healing journey as well. And thank you for listening. Until next time, stay nourished.